Hey everyone, welcome to the lab. We're going to be experimenting today with the Ethiopian Kayon Mountain. It's a natural process from the Guji region in Ethiopia. It's a land-raised heirloom varietal. We're going to be brewing this coffee with 3 different water temperatures to see how taste, aroma, appearance changes based on the water temperature. The first thing we're going to do is set our water temperatures. I'm going to set the first one to 175. That is on the lower side, and I'm doing that on purpose, obviously, so that I can showcase what's going to happen to the brew at such a low temperature. Our second one, we're going to put at optimum brew temperature, so that's going to be 200 degrees. And the last one, we're going to set to 212, so boiling water. Now let's go ahead and weigh out and grind our coffee that we're going to use. Again, same amount of coffee, same grind size. We're not going to change anything in those regards. The only thing we're doing different in this brew is the water temperature. I'm going to do 12 ounces each of this coffee, so I'm going to go ahead and do 24 grams for each 12-ounce cup. That's a really easy way to figure out how much coffee to use based on ounces. You just double the amount of the ounces that you're using in your coffee. So if you have a 10-ounce coffee, you're gonna do 20 grams. If you have a 8-ounce cup, you're gonna do 16 grams. And so for this one, we're going to do 24 grams for 12 ounces. What's really cool about these fellow EKG kettles is that you can hold the water temperature into place. It's going to maintain that temperature throughout your entire brew. We're just gonna grind these all at the same consistency. These are for V60s, so I'm gonna move this to 2 and grind my coffee. Let's go ahead and set our filters up in our V60, and don't forget we need to wet the filters to get rid of any papery taste. It's also nice to just heat up the decanter and make sure you discard that water before the brew begins. Okay, so we're gonna get started with our brew. Again, we're not gonna change anything when it comes to our technique or bloom. You'll notice while I'm brewing that the time is definitely affected by the water temperature. So I'm gonna try and shoot for about 15 seconds in between each brew. Again, this might get a little bit carried away or ahead of me because of the water temperature is going to affect the brew so much, but we're gonna try and keep it within a 15-second range. So I'm gonna start with the 175, and we're going to start the bloom. I'm gonna go to about 48 grams. I'm just doubling the amount of coffee that I am using. I'm gonna let that hit the 15 mark, and then I'm gonna start my next brew. Again, shooting for 48 grams for the bloom. It's at 15, moving on to the next one. I'm gonna start our brew with the boiling water. And now this one's gonna hit 45 seconds, and once we hit 45 seconds, our bloom is over, and we're gonna move on to our actual brew. I'm gonna try and hit around 120 before moving on to the next brew. Again, this is gonna be difficult to maintain because the water temperature is going to manipulate the brew, but we're gonna do our best. Visually, you can already see the difference in these brews. The cooler temperature doesn't really have a nice mushroom head of foam on top of it at all. I'm gonna try and hit about 180 this time. You might notice the extraction rate is quite different, and how the cooler water temperature is much slower and the hot water temperature is much faster. Even though I started the cooler temperature first, you're gonna see that the hot water catches up, and they're all gonna finish around the same time. You might notice the water bed on the cooler temperature water is staying up a lot higher than the hot water temperature, which is going much faster. The hotter the water, the faster the extraction rate. This is a 12-ounce cup of coffee, so we're looking for about 440 grams to finish. I'm gonna go ahead and make my final pour and give everything a nice little spin so that the extraction rate is nice and even and there's no high and dries in my brew. That's really interesting, right? I started with this one, but it wasn't the first to finish, and that's because the water temperature was at 175, which was considerably cooler than the boiling water, which was at 212. And then obviously our optimum brew temperature finished right around the time that I wanted to, right within range, and in between these two. The first thing I want to point out here is like the color difference that you might notice. So with the lighter temperature, the cooler temperature water, you'll notice that it's a little bit lighter in color. And then with Optimum Brew is a nice reddish brown. With the hotter temperature water, it's a little bit darker and you have more of that like red and black. It's really hard to tell unless you can get really up close, but it is there. The color is the first thing that you'll notice when the water temperature changes. Next up is taste. Okay, so now we're gonna try these and we're gonna talk about what happened within the brew and the tasting notes within. We're gonna start with the 175 temperature. First off, anything with a lower water temperature, the aroma is always gonna stand out, in my opinion, more. It has much more of like a floral, fruity aromatics happening, which is always a plus for lower temperature water. I was gonna say. It's not a bad cup of coffee, but it is lacking. I know with this coffee, it should have some like really sharp tasting notes, and it's flat, it's a little dull, weak, a little watery, and kind of has this like peanutty aftertaste, which kind of happens if your water temperature is too low. So again, I wouldn't turn this away. It's still good quality Arabica specialty coffee, but it is lacking in its flavor. I only really suggest using a lower temperature water if you are brewing with a darker roast profile, because darker roasts don't need as much help to extract the solubles from the bean mass, and that's because they're not as dense. So you might want to use lower temperature water, but again, you should still stay within the Optimum Brew range. So 195 would really be the lowest that you would want to go when brewing with a darker roast profile. So if you like darker roast, try a 195. Up next, we have 200 degrees. So this is Optimum Brew temperature. Way more punchier. Really get those fruity notes out of that. Cleaner, really nice finish. I'm not getting that papery, peanutty taste that I was getting with the lower temperature. This is a really good cup of coffee. And this is exactly how this coffee should taste, which I kind of knew it would. And I know based on this experiment that that was gonna happen. So I stuck with 200, but that doesn't mean you can't play around with anything between 195 or 205. I just thought we'll go with 200 because it's right in the middle of Optimum Brew temperature. Okay, up next we have the 212 boiling temperature. Yeah, it's really interesting because this one just smells really divine, and this one just kind of smells hot. If hot had a smell, it smells like this. If hot had a taste, it tastes hot as well. And this brings out a lot of bitter carbohydrates, plant fiber solubles that taste bitter. I mean, it's impossible to escape the bitterness of coffee. Caffeine tastes bitter, and I'm really getting that in this. It's not against the rules to go outside of 195 or 205. You absolutely can, and you can experiment, and I definitely encourage it, but there's a reason why we have Optimum Brew temperature, and it's for these reasons. I typically like to go with a hotter temperature like 205 if I have a lighter roasted coffee, because the beans are a lot more dense and they need a little bit more help with the extraction. But this is definitely the one that I'm leaning towards. This is the one that tastes the yummiest to me. I'm getting to experience all of those sugars and oils and delicious flavor profile from this coffee. This concludes our experiment today. It's kind of exactly what I thought was gonna happen. If you wanna try this for yourself, I definitely encourage it. I think you'll be really surprised at what you experience in both flavor, aroma, visually, in the cup itself. If you wanna purchase this coffee, it's available on our website, in our retail store as well. It's a limited series, won't be around for long, so you're definitely gonna wanna snag it. I'd love to hear more about you brewing at home or what temperature you're brewing with at home. Leave your comments below and we'll get back to you. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.